Ayan, magandang araw sa inyong lahat. So again, welcome to our subject, Accounting Information System. And this is your instructor, Noel Bergonia, and we are about to discuss Chapter 8, Financial Reporting and Management Reporting System. So for today's discussion, so here are our objectives. Okay. So after this chapter, you will be able to understand the operational features of the general ledger system, the financial reporting systems, and also the management reporting system. You will also be able to identify the principal operational controls governing the general ledger and financial reporting system. You will also understand the factors that influence the design of a management reporting system, understand the elements of a responsibility accounting system, and lastly, be familiar with financial reporting issues surrounding XBRL. Okay, so let's start our discussion. So in the previous chapter, we have discussed the transaction cycles, which actually processes the events that are being recorded in either the special journal o kaya naman general journal. And also, di ba, last time in the various chapters about um, revenue cycle, expenditure cycle, and conversion cycle, no, yung last point ng process doon is eventually up to um, yung pagbato ng information going to the general ledger department. So in this particular discussion in chapter 8, we will start it with the general ledger system, okay, because it's where we could be able to connect it with the various processes in the previous chapter bago tayo mag-financial reporting. Okay? So the general ledger system, okay, as its function, no, should, okay, as an input, okay, collect the transaction data promptly and correctly. So, ibig sabihin, dapat yung input natin na data in the general ledger system should be accurate. It was being reconciled, di ba? Naalala ninyo, yung ginagawa ng general ledger department is to reconcile first the records before it posts the information to the general ledger system. It also classify or code the data and accounts. Ayun pa, it validates the collected transactions, maintaining the accounting controls. So after nagkaroon na tayo ng input in the general ledger system, in its process, no, it will post the transaction to the proper accounts. After that, maa-update po yung mga general ledger accounts and also the transaction files, and since we have this system. So later on, we will be discussing the files in a general ledger system. Okay, and also we will be recording adjustments to accounts, okay, in this particular general ledger system. Then afterwards, the output of this general ledger system would be the stored transaction data, no, the process information. Then we have already the financial reports, which is part na nung ating financial reporting system and also management reporting system. Okay, so this is the overall function of a general ledger system. So any questions so far? Wala naman. All right, so let's continue. So in this particular illustration, no, it will show you now the relationship of the general ledger system with the various um, information subsystems that we have discussed previously. As you can see here, you have the billings, the sales, the cash receipt system, the cost accounting na nandoon sa expenditure and conversion cycle, okay, the cash disbursements doon sa expenditure cycle, the payroll, the inventory, okay. These are the various subsystems which serves as an input data to our general ledger system. And after this general ledger system processes the information, then its output will go now to the financial reporting system and also the management reporting system. Okay? So, kaya importante that the general ledger system, okay, is in place so that it would be faster, and also yung mga diniscuss natin in the previous chapter, no, it makes the reconciliation before it provides us the financial reports. Alright? So, yan yung connection ng general ledger system to the other subsystems. Okay. So, as part of the general ledger system, we have its database. So, ano po ba yung laman ng database ng isang general ledger system? Okay. So, one would be the general ledger master file na tinatawag natin. So, this file is the primary file of the general ledger database. So, it is based on the organization's published chart of accounts. So, each record in the general ledger master is either a separate general ledger account or it could also be a control account. Okay? So, yan yung general ledger master file natin. So, generally, yan po yung kung manual accounting system tayo, then yan po yung ledger, general ledger nyo mismo, no? Your notebook na general ledger. Next would be general ledger history file. So this file has the same format with the general ledger master file, and the primary purpose of it is to provide historical financial data for comparative financial reports. Okay, because we are going to dig deep with the previous files that we have already generated in the general ledger system. So yan yung purpose ng general ledger history file. We have also journal voucher file, which is the total collection of journal vouchers processed in the current period. So this file provides a record of all general ledger transactions and replaces the traditional general journal. Okay, so for the current period yan. Ngayon, kung past period naman yan, we will be talking about the journal voucher history file, which contains the journal vouchers of the past periods, and this will serve as also an important link to the firm's audit trail. Kasi 'di ba kailangan natin i-maintain yung history or the audit trail in a transaction. Okay? Another also is the responsibility center file. So later this particular chapter now we will be discussing again about responsibility centers or responsibility accounting, but the purpose of this responsibility center file is to contain the information about the revenues, expenditures, and other resources utilization data for each responsibility center in the organization. So the management reporting system, upon this data for input, okay, draws the information. So, itong responsibility center file na to, dito, usually kumukuha yung management reporting system ng kanyang data. And then finally, we have also the budget master file, which contains the budgeted amounts of either the revenues o kaya naman expenditures or other resources of our entity. Alright, so these are the various files that we have under the general ledger system. Okay? Naintindihan po ba? Alright, so this is just an example of a journal voucher layout for a general ledger master file. Okay, so pinapakita lang natin, as you can see, it's a typical journal voucher file. But technically, the format would be different and the entities, no? Depending upon kung anong information yung gusto nila makita. Pero yung typical na makikita ninyo sa general journal voucher file is the date, of course, the account number, the account name being used, yung amounts, the explanation, and also approval kasi this is a journal voucher. Remember, in the previous chapters, the journal voucher should be duly approved by an authorized person. Okay? So this is eventually the data flow of our financial reporting process. Okay, so just like in basic accounting, no, everything will start with an economic event, an exchange of transactions, no, an exchange of goods or services affecting the resources of the business. So once there is already an economic event, it would arise to a transaction. So the system will capture the transaction, then it will go to our post yung term na ginamit dito, but technically we could also use journalize it to our special journals or general journal maybe, and also to our subsidiary ledger. So itong number 2. Then after that, it will prepare journal voucher file, which will be saved on the journal voucher um, file natin. Okay, and then it will go through posting to the general ledger. Okay, then after all have been recorded in the general ledger, it will now proceed in the preparation of our trial balance. Okay, by obtaining the account balances from the general ledger, which will go to the worksheet. Diba sa worksheet, ang first um, process there is to prepare the unadjusted trial balance. Okay, so ito prepare the trial balance. Pagka-prepare nun, then typically you will adjust the accounts. So andito tayo. Then once adjusted, okay, it will also create a journal voucher, no? Nagkakaroon din ng adjusted trial balance. And out of the adjusted trial balance, it will now be the basis in preparing the financial statements which will be used by stakeholders. So at the end of the financial statement being prepared, no, magkakaroon na rin tayo ng preparation ng closing entries. Then you will prepare the post-closing trial balance. So this process is eventually walang pinagkaiba with the basic accounting process. Yun nga lang, as you can see, there is a generation of a journal voucher file or journal voucher that in a manual system, no, hindi naman typical na gumagawa na dun sa diniscuss sa basic accounting ninyo, hindi naman kayo gumagawa ng journal file, di ba? It's a continuous process. But in here, there are journal voucher file. And also, mamaya we will be showing also the process naman if we are about to use the computerized system. So this is just usual manual or physical accounting system. Okay? So may question tayo so far? Ayan naman. Okay. All right. So what are the typical reports that we could derive from the general ledger system? Okay, one would be, of course, the general ledger analysis, which is the listing of the transactions, okay, the allocation of expenses to cost centers. So later on, we'll be discussing cost centers. The comparison of account balances from period to period and trial balance. So eventually, nung ako yung nagtatrabaho sa private, we are doing the general ledger analysis so that we could be able to identify ano ba yung mga transactions that causes the account to move at the same time so that we could be able to detect baka merong naka-record sa isang account na hindi pala dapat doon. Okay, so that's one report that we have in the general ledger system. Another, and the most important reports that we need for this particular discussion is yung mga financial statements, di ba? Yung statement of financial position, your statement of comprehensive income, statement of cash flows, and of course, yung notes, guys, hindi natin siya makukuha dito. It's really prepared using the human intervention. No? Then, managerial reports, the management reports natin, such as analysis of sales or even cash or receivables, or depending upon what's the um, needed reports by the management. So, it could be derived from the general ledger system. Okay? Oops. Also, we have the chart of accounts, okay, wherein it is a coded listing of all of the accounts. But eventually, um, kahit hindi natin siya considered as a report since that's actually an input para sa general ledger system, no, yung chart of accounts natin. So, talking about the general ledger system, now we have various potential risks that would affect our general ledger as well as the financial reporting system. So one of which would be improperly prepared journal entries. So pag hindi po tama yung journal entry, so mali yung journal voucher which is an input to the general ledger system, then yung input na yon as it process, mali rin yung magiging output niya. Diba? So eventually dapat you need to recheck, diba? In the previous chapters, nire-recheck ng General Ledger Department bago nila i-input yon sa General Ledger System. Now, also, one of the risks is unposted journal entries. So, eventually, this needs to be addressed in terms of properly accounting for the journal entries. Dapat may mga codings, meron tayong sequencing in a chronological order para ma-avoid natin ang unposted journal entries. The debit is also not equal to the credit, which is typical if we have, let's say, slide error o kaya naman transposition errors in some of our inputs. Subsidiary ledger not equal to the general ledger control account. Di ba dapat equal yan? Kasi kung ano naman yung input sa subsidiary, yun din dapat yung input sa general ledger. But sometimes, again, input error would be a risk in this particular process. Inappropriate access to the general ledger, important yan kasi once access, di ba, they could have a particular manipulation of data and it would cause to a fraud or even misrepresentation of the financial information. Another is poor audit trail. Okay, so pag hindi natin kaya ma-backtrack yung isang transaction, eventually yung pag-maintain ng mga files, no, that's a cause of poor audit trail. Then loss or damaged data. So to address this, di ba, we need to have a backup system. And then finally, account balances that are wrong because of unauthorized or incorrect journal vouchers. So yan yung mga potential risks in our general ledger system or the financial reporting system, which um, gives us also some control issues na eventually dapat na-address ng entities. Okay, we're in number 1, transaction authorization. So our journal vouchers being an input, okay, to the general ledger system must be properly authorized by a manager or even any person who is responsible for approving or authorizing it at the source department. Kaya in the previous chapters, kapag hindi approve or authorize yung transactions, then it should be what? Not be posted in the general ledger unless na-prove na natin na authorized pala yun. Okay? So another issue is about the segregation of duties. It is important that the general ledger clerk should not, okay, have the recording or record-keeping responsibility for the special journals or subsidiary ledgers. So hindi dapat tayo nagme-maintain nun. And also, we should not be the one to prepare the journal vouchers. Sino ba nagpe-prepare ng journal vouchers? In the previous chapter, let's say, expenditure cycle, the accounts payable department prepares the journal voucher. Diba? And also, we should not have the custody of physical asset because in the previous chapter, such as conversion cycle, diba, it should be on the storekeeping, no? Who is responsible for that and not the general ledger system. Okay? Another would be yung access control, 'di ba? Another potential risk yung kanina, unauthorized access. So for unauthorized access to avoid fraud, no, we need to provide for controls. Let's say for example, ano ba yung mga pwede natin? Sabi dito, you limit the database access. So kung computerized accounting system ka, dapat it should have an appropriate password, username, kung sino lang yung allowed na i-access yung database na yon. And kapag manual naman, typically, 'di ba, yung mga accounting records mo dapat nakalock yan sa let's say drawers, no, on a particular place wherein it could not be accessible to various people. Okay, also the accounting records that we should have a trace of source documents from the inception to financial statements. So important ulit yung audit trail for our accounting records. For independent verification naman, so one of the function of the General Ledger Department is to reconcile first the journal vouchers or even the summaries before it proceed with the process of the General Ledger system. No? Importante yon. Okay, there are 2 operational reports that was being used for independent verification. One would be the journal voucher listing, which contains the details of each journal voucher being posted to the general ledger, and also the general ledger change report, which is a report that contains the effects of journal voucher posting to the general ledger account. So these were the 2 reports being used for reconciliation purposes or independent verification. So, ayan. Those are some control issues, but if the entity could be able to address that, then yung mga potential risks natin na diniscuss kanina will be avoided. Okay? So, right now, this is a general overview of the database technology in terms of the general ledger or financial reporting system. Of course, as you can see dito, 'di ba? You have the various subsystems, okay, and the various chapters na discuss natin, 'di ba? Yung revenue cycle, the expenditure cycle, and also most likely conversion cycle. Okay, it will proceed to the general ledger master natin file at saka journal voucher transaction file. Okay, so wherein it will go to the system, and then the system will process it, prepare, adjusting, and closing up to the financial statements was being generated. So eventually, kung sasabihin ko ito in my work, no, or i-discuss ko ito in my work, the input, ang ginagawa na lang kapag meron kang database technology is the input, no, monitoring, and then reconciliation. Ganun na lang yung work mo because you are not actually going to manually prepare the financial statements because it is innate already to that database technology. Mamaya we will be talking about some types of reports being generated. Okay? Any question? Kaya madali na lang yung buhay if you have a database. So one example of a system that could be used as database, yung SAP, no? Or even yung mga Oracle na tinatawag, Enterprise Resource Planning Systems. So we will be discussing those in chapter 11 naman. Okay, so let's continue. All right. So by using this database technology, okay, so we could be able to immediately update the record and reconcile it. Okay, kasi nga the information there could be timely. If not real time, yung information, it would be timely, no? Kaya na immediately na-update yung record. Actually, pagka-encode mo, diretso niya siya sa general ledger system, then pwede ka na actually mag-generate agad ng report after no particular input na yon because the system will process it already. Okay, it also removes separation of transaction, authorization, and processing. So less human intervention tayo doon. But even though it removes the separation of authorization and processing, no, it technically have a compensating control, no? Hindi pa rin nawawala yung control natin wherein there is a detailed journal voucher listing and account activity report which we could reconcile manually. Okay? And also there is a centralized access to the accounting record, so it just need access controls, okay, through password or any authorization tables. So ayan, nalilesan yung work to database technology. Okay, so we are actually done with the general ledger system and also pahapyaw na ng financial reporting system natin. So any question guys about this? Wala naman. Kasi yun nga, karugtong na ng general ledger and financial reporting system because automatic naman na generated na yung mga financial statements after that. So right now, we will be talking about some sort of the financial reporting system engineering. Okay, so kanina na-discuss na natin yung typical na preparation of the financial reporting. No? Right now, there are some technologies being used for financial reporting which could be used for the re-engineering. Okay, such as number one, we have itong tinatawag natin na HTML or Hypertext Markup Language. So usually, online reporting of financial data has become a competitive necessity for any organization. So most of the organizations accomplish this online reporting by placing their financial statements and other financial reports on their respective websites, 'di ba? As an HTML. So pag halimbawa, nag-search kayo ng mga organizations na having a website, let's say for example, Jollibee Food Corporation. If you try to search that in the internet, no, lalabas yung kanilang website, then one of the links there would be most likely yung kanilang financial reports. Okay, may annual reports na sila. Hindi mo na kailangan pumunta pa sa SEC para hingin yung annual reports nila. But it is already published in the websites. That's especially for those publicly listed entities. Excuse me. Okay? So, through the use of this hypertext markup language, okay, that document, yung mga financial statements na yon, can be downloaded already by the users of financial information through their website. So these HTML reports cannot be conveniently processed through IT automations. So you need to perform some sort of analysis to manually enter the user's information system. So eventually, itong HTML na to is used, no, to format a particular report in a web page, no? Siya yung itong HTML na to defines the layout, yung font, yung graphical elements na lalabas na report doon sa kanilang website, no? It also uses layout information for displaying appealing manners like one sees in magazines or even newspapers. So it also use both text and graphics, yung mga let's say pag dinownload niyo yung mga reports, no, mayroong mga graphs, something like that, which is appealing to the users. Okay? So, through the use of this HTML, no, it creates hypertext links also to other documents. So, pag clinic mo yon, yung link na yon, then most likely, okay, pwede makita yung financial statements. Tapos, pag merong hypertext doon, no, link, you can click that. Let's say, for example, annual report, then pwede mo makita yung, let's say, notes to financial statements o kaya naman mga some sort of accounting system, kagaya ng pinapa-research ko sa inyo, di ba? Okay? So, that's one thing na brought up ng technology, no? So, we need not to really go to some sort of uh, governing bodies just to get the financial report, but it is already published in their particular websites. However, no, meron po tayong concern about HTML na banggit ko nga kanina, wherein you cannot process it through IT automation, hindi siya convenient. Kaya dito lumabas ngayon yung tinatawag natin na XML or Extensible Markup Language. So XML is a meta language for describing markup languages. Medyo IT terminologies to, don't worry, in your actual practice, you're not going to really memorize these things. Now we're just discussing it so that you will be able to know. So the term extensible means that any markup language can be created using an XML, which includes yung creation ng markup languages which are capable for storing data and relational forms in tags o kaya naman formatting commands which are mapped to a data value. Thus, XML can be used to model the data structure of an organization's internal database. So, see the difference? No? Itong extensible markup language, it is used for data structuring in the organization. Samantalang yung HTML kanina, it's more on some sort of formats. So to explain further the difference between the two, okay? So this is the comparison. So as you can see, we have the XML and the HTML. So sa HTML, mapapansin mo, it's more on the format, no? Yung naka-bold, naka-italize, 'di ba? 9 point, standardized. Okay, it's more on the format that can only be displayed. While the XML, okay, its end users computer can recognize XML, which is to broaden the current places in the website. So let's say for example dito sa ano to, hindi ko naman nakakita sa XML ng format, 'di ba? It talks about more the data about a particular transaction such as yung price, 'di ba? Yung quantity. Okay, ang pinagkaparehas lang nila eventually dito is wala, 'di ba? Okay, kasi dito more on format, ito ay more on a particular language or tag. 'Di ba? So pag sinearch mo yung author, Dojan, okay, ito 'yon. Dito it's more on format again. Alright? Yun yung pinagkaiba nila. But usually, most organizations use both in their financial reporting system. Okay. Recognizing the benefits of XML kanina, okay, the AICPA encourages researches into the creation of accounting specified markup language. So, ngayon, nag-derive or nakapag-derive sila ng tinatawag natin na XBRL through their research about ano ba yung pwedeng specific na accounting markup language natin. Kasi yung kanina, general yun, yung HTML at saka XML, di ba? Anything, that's a typical word that you can hear. Ngayon, itong XBRL, it is an extensible business reporting language which is specifically used for accounting system. So, XBRL is actually an XML language for standardizing methods for preparing, publishing, and exchanging financial financial information, specifically the financial statements for publicly held entities. So, XBRL is typically used for reporting aggregated financial data, but can also be applied to communicating information pertaining to individual transactions. So, it has actually various steps, no? Ito, one of it is the XBRL taxonomy, which is a classification scheme. Pag sinabi nating taxonomy, it is a scheme that is compliant with the XBRL specification to accomplish a specific information exchange or reporting objectives. Okay? So, it specifies yung data to be included in the report. Yan yung ginagawa niyang taxonomy na yan. Now, what are the advantages of using XBRL? So, the XBRL, no, offers expanded financial information to all interested party virtually instantaneously. Okay? Then also, it helps companies to use the XBRL database technology, which can further the speed in processing our reporting. And finally, the customers can import XBRL documents into internal databases and analysis tools to greatly facilitate their decision process. Kasi it's accounting specific reporting language na. Alright? So, this particular illustration shows us the overview of XBRL, no, na ang makikita ninyo from the taxonomy, no, magkakaroon na tayo ng financial reporting database natin which is embedded with tags, and then the end would be the financial reports of the users, then analyzing the financial information. Actually, hindi pa ako masyadong nakakita ng or even baka hindi pa ako aware before that that is XBRL in the particular system, no, but eventually this is being used by some organizations, right? So, any questions so far, guys? Huwag kayong mag-alala, hindi nyo naisipin yung XBRL na yan. Okay, what your focus pag kayo nagtrabaho na, it's more on your yung mga na-discuss kanina, the proper way how to input it, no? You need to do your accounting process per se as input, then analyze. Ganun na lang gagawin mo. Hindi mo po problemahin yung mga language na yan. Okay? Alright? So, what are the implications of this XBRL to finish the discussion about the XBRL? No? So, one of the audit implication of it is about the taxonomy, okay, yung coding scheme, yung scheme kanina, di ba? So, if the taxonomy is incorrect, then magkakaroon ng invalid mapping ng information which would cause a material misrepresentation of financial data. Halimbawa, yung coding mo, dapat let's say pupunta sa cash, then na-code siya or improperly coded siya sa ibang asset, then it would misrepresent our financial information already. Next would be validation of instance document. So you need to ensure that there is a proper taxonomy and the tags are being applied. Kasi kanina, di ba, in XBRL, merong tags na ginagamit, and that tag would be the one to generate the financial report needed by the user. Then also the audit scope, no, and time frame. So it is important, no, because it impacts the auditor's responsibility in a real-time distribution of financial statement. All right? So that's all about the financial reporting system. Right now, pupunta na tayo sa management reporting systems. Okay? Any question muna before we proceed? Okay? Wala naman? Alright? So, usually, ang financial reporting system is creating reports that are typically used by external users. Hindi natin Diba? Hindi naman natin sinasantabi ang internal users. They can also use the output of the financial reporting system, but usually it caters more to the external users. Diba? Yun yung purpose under the conceptual framework ng financial reporting natin. Okay, but for the purpose of making decision inside the organization, so entities needs as well management reporting system. So ano ba tong management reporting system na to? So this system, okay, so this system is actually producing both financial and non-financial information which is needed by the management to plan and evaluate as well as control their businesses. All right? So typically it's a basis for the management decisions in their company. So it is also known as discretionary reporting because it depends upon the entity if they want to use the management reporting system in that case. Okay, in the US, no, through the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, no, it requires entities to have management reporting system, which is a formal means of monitoring some sort of internal controls. Okay, in the Philippines, wala naman tayong law which is governing and requiring that there should be management reporting system. But in the US, they need it. Right? So the management reporting system was being affected by various factors, no? Especially its design. So here are the various factors which influences the management reporting system design, no? Which we'll be discussing later one by one. You have the management principle, the management functions, the levels and decision types, the problem structure, the types of management report needed, the responsibility accounting, and also some behavioral considerations. So let's talk about this one by one, no? The factors that influence the management reporting system, sorry, design. So the first factor is about the management principles. Of course, no, management principles provides insight into management information needs. So yung principle ng management eventually affects directly the management reporting system. Kasi how they do their decisions should be based on their management principles. So we will have a discussion of various management principles, okay, that is used in financial reporting, and let's talk about the impact of it and implication to the management reporting system. So one of the management principle natin is formalization of tasks. So when we talk about formalization of tasks, it is a principle which suggests that management should structure the firm around the task it performs rather than around the individuals with unique skills. So eventually, kapag pumunta kayo sa organization, they are structuring the organization per task. So let's say for example, okay, accounting department, di ba? HR department, okay? Those are some tasks rather than individual unique skills ang i-create nila as structure. So this particular formalization of tasks, okay, implicates on the management reporting system by allowing some specification of information which are being needed to support those tasks. So dahil naka per task tayo, so dapat yung report should be addressing the information that is needed by that task. Okay? So, pwedeng i-modify yan sa paggawa ng ano. Okay, halimbawa, sa task na to, accounting task. Okay, these are the information needed. So, typically, yun yung dapat nalalabas sa report ng management reporting system. Okay, per task. Rather than individual. Clear tayo. Another management principle being applied and affecting our management reporting system is the responsibility and authority. So distinguishing it, no, the principle of responsibility refers to an individual's obligation to achieve a desired result, while authority naman is a manner on which power to make decisions within a limit of responsibility. So, anong effect nitong particular responsibility and authority nito? Mamaya we'll be talking about responsibility accounting, di ba? But in this principle, you can delegate, no? the managers, the upper level management, could delegate their particular work to their subordinates. Okay? And what's the implication yan ngayon sa ating management reporting system dahil madidelegate yung mga um, work. Okay? So, typically, this principle would define now the vertical reporting channels of the firm through the information flow. So the manager's location in the financial reporting channel influences the scope and details of information being recorded. So di ba na-discuss natin to in the previous chapter, I think in chapter 1 yung pyramid about the organization's level, okay, na i-discuss din ulit natin mamaya, wherein as the information or as the level of management goes higher, okay, the less detailed information yung kanilang makukuha or summarize na dapat yung kanilang makukuha compared with dun sa mga nasa baba or operations. Okay, we have, naalala nyo yun, yung upward and downward flow of information flow. So, yun yung kailangan nating incorporate in management reporting system so that whatever level of the management will use itong management reporting system, then they could be able to generate the appropriate report that they need. All right? So another principle is also the span of control. So a manager's span of control refers to the number of subordinates directly under his or her control. So the size of a span has an impact on the organization's physical structure. Okay? So what's the implication of this, no? In the management reporting system? So detailed reports for managers with a narrow span of control. So, kapag mas konti lang, 'di ba, yung kanilang span of control, then most likely detailed report ang kailangan nila. But if it is already a broader span of control or wider span of control, then it needs already a summarized information. Kasi masyado nang madaming data na pupunta sa iyo, baka ma-information overload ka na if you are going to get uh, a detailed report kapag nasa wide span of control ka na. Okay? Ayan. Any question? Next would be management by exception. So this principle suggests that managers should limit their attention to potential problem areas rather than being involved in every activity or decision. So the managers must maintain control without being overwhelmed by the information. So yun yung management by exceptions, no? So the manager should limit their attention to potential problem areas para makapag-address sila agad. Now, in this particular principle, it impacts our management reporting system by, okay, the reports na kailangan nila should focus on the changes in key factors that are symptomatic of potential problems. So, di ba, sa management by exception kanina, attention to problems. So, dapat yung report na meron sila is more on the problem, potential problem na possible mangyari so that they could be able to address it immediately. Okay? All right. So, next would be about, next factor is about management level and decision type. So, ito ulit yung triangle natin. Okay, so mamaya isa-isahin natin yan, no? So, we have the top level management, then it goes to the middle, which is responsible for tactical planning and management control. Then, the operations management is focusing on operational control, and then the operations. Okay, so isa-isahin natin yan. So first would be about the top level management. So sa top level management, it creates the strategic planning decisions. So ano bang meron sa strategic planning decision? So the top level managers, okay, sets the firm's goals and objectives. Okay, their focus is more on the scope of business activities, the organizational structure, the management philosophy, okay, long term yung kanilang scope, no? Kasi they are more on long term planning. Then non-recurring yung particular activity, then high degree din ng uncertainty. Okay, it also needs, ito na yung effect niyan doon sa ating management reporting system. it needs highly summarized information. So, kapag nasa top level management ka, yung report na mag-generate mo supposed to be from the management reporting system is already summarized version, no? And also, it requires external and internal information sources. Alright? So, ganyan yung kailangan natin makita in the top level management, which makes the strategic planning. Okay? Comparing it with those in the middle management, which are in charge in tactical planning decisions naman. Okay? So tactical planning decisions are subordinate of strategic decisions and are made by middle management. So these decisions are somehow short term, more specific, recurring, have more certain outcomes, and have a lesser impact on the firm's strategic decision. Okay? So, ayan. So, fairly yung outcome limited. So, eventually, again, in terms of the management reporting system, the reports should suit on this tactical planning if the management, middle management will use that particular reporting system. Another part ng middle management is also the management control, which is deciding more on the resources which are productively as possible in all functional areas, then evaluating the performance of the subordinates against some standards. Okay, so uncertainty surrounds management control decisions because it is difficult to separate the manager's performance from that of his or her operational units. All right. So the segment will operate, okay, in this particular system na kung saan they need a specific uh, part in the management report that they could be able to use in the management control decisions. Eventually, guys, pag gumagawa kasi ng management reporting system, they, aside from, kung baga, meron kasing tinatawag tayo na in-house, so yun yung pwedeng ginagawa lang inside the organization, o kaya naman meron na tayo nung nabibili talagang software niyan. So, lalo na kung mayroong specific sa inyong company na kailangan report, then it needs to be modified in that system. So, itong management control natin, the information on it, no, should be used by the management, middle management, no, to evaluate the performances. At hindi ko pa ito nakikita, no, kasi nga I'm not part of the upper management pa naman. So usually ano lang yan, input lang, or even pag may meeting, saka lang nakikita yung mga reports niyan. Okay. So next on the level is actually the operations management, which is more on the operational control decisions. Okay. So this bridge the operations and the middle and top management. So, ang ginagawa dito sa operation control decision is usually deal with routinary tasks, no? And also narrow yung focus, dependent siya sa details. Kasi nga, from operation, which is detailed, okay, gumagawa ng operational control decisions yung manager doon, okay, through the detailed information from the operations. Highly structured din siya at saka short time frame lang siya because it needs to provide information to the upper management immediately. Okay, so some of the basic elements or steps in the operational control decision. So, magse-set dapat ng standard yung manager doon. No? It should also evaluate the performance of the operations. Tapos, it needs already to take corrective actions. So, hindi natin aantayin na yung top level management yung mag-correct sa operations. It should be the operations management who will correct any problems or address any problems about the operations. Ang pupunta na lang sa taas is eventually report or even the resolution na lang. Okay? So that should be incorporated in the management reporting system. Okay, any question? So that's all about the management function, levels, and types of decision. Okay, this is just a summary of what we have discussed kanina. No? All right. So another factor that would influence the management reporting system is the problem structure. So the structure of the problem reflects how well the decision makers understand the problem. Okay, so the structure of this problem has three elements. Okay, so it's the data where the values used to represent factors that are relevant to the problem, the procedures, which are the sequence of steps or decision rules used in solving a problem, and then the objective, which is the result of decision makers in desiring to attain solving the problem. So when all of these three elements are known with certainty, then the problem is structured. So pag alam mo yung data, yung procedure, at saka objective, that's a structured problem. So let's say for example, ano ba example ng isang structured problem? So let's say payroll calculation. Okay? Because you can identify the data for calculation, 'di ba, ng payroll. Ano yung um, data na nandun, yung hourly rate, ilang oras siya nagtrabaho, tapos ano yung procedure sa pag-compute ng payroll, di ba? Then objectives natin is to discharge the financial obligations natin or mabayaran natin yung mga employee natin. That's actually a structured problem. Ngayon naman, may mga problems na tinuturing natin unstructured. So, ang unstructured problem, no? If any of these three, itong elements natin, pag meron tayong hindi alam dyan, then that's considered already as an unstructured problem. Okay? So, an unstructured problem is one in which we have no precise solution techniques. Kapag structured kasi yung problem, meron na tayong immediate na solusyon doon. Halimbawa, pag nasira yung machine, okay? Immediately, dapat meron tayong manual that could address the issue on the machine. Okay? Na mali yung computation ng payroll. Di ba? So, ayun, kanina nabanggit ko na, meron tayong steps na sinusunod. Usually, okay, dito tayo sa next slide, the structured problems are typically arising in the operations. Di ba? Nasira yung machine, paano ayusin, ito yung process, okay? Yung payroll, hindi maayos, anong gagawin? Okay? So, ano pa? Yung product, nagkaroon ng problema, tignan yung process. Okay? So, again, as you can see here, the structured problems are typically arising in the operations or part of the operations management. While, as it goes higher on the management level natin, no, the more unstructured yung mga problems. Bakit? Kasi it needs more analysis. Okay, kasi hindi rin yan ano hindi yan definite, 'di ba? Na ay halimbawa may ganitong nangyari sa entity, no, nagkaroon ng financial problem, hindi siya immediately masosolve ng isang manual lang na meron tayo compared with the structured problem. Alright? So, there are some sort of effect of this problem structure in creating the management reporting system kasi dapat we could be able to have already some sort of answers from the management reporting system natin lalo na sa structured problems. Pero yung mga unstructured, no, pwedeng ilagay as input yon kapag nasagot na, nagawa na ng answers ng management. Okay? So that they could become also some sort of structured na. Okay, so now let's talk about the types of management reports. So yan. So one factor also affecting the management reporting system is the type of report that management needs in order for them to decide. So reports are the formal vehicles for conveying information to our managers, no? So the term report tends to imply that it is a written message presented on a sheet of paper. But in fact, a management report may be a paper document o kaya naman a digital image or even a soft copy that was being displayed. So, one of this particular report, no, type of report natin na makikita in the management reporting system are report objectives. So, these are reports that have value or information content. So, eventually, lahat naman ng report ay may kanya-kanyang objective. So, that's what we need. So, let's say, for example, kailangan ko ng data about, let's say, for example, payroll. So, summarized version for the management about the payroll. So the objective of that report is for that particular report of payroll. Kaya naman, I need a report about, let's say, the fixed asset. Okay, so its objective is to show information about the fixed asset. Okay, so that's the report objectives. Okay, it contains information or value content. Okay, this particular report objective should reduce the level of uncertainty associated with the problem facing by the decision maker kasi nga specific yung particular na objective ng report. Kanina sa payroll, kung payroll yung kailangan ko i-address na problema, then ito yung kailangan kong report. Okay, about the payroll. And also, this report objective influences the behavior of the decision makers in positive way naman. Alright? So ano nga ba yung typical na attributes ng isang report? Okay? So dapat in our financial conceptual framework na discussion, we have the qualitative characteristics of financial information. So parang ganito rin tong report attributes na to. Ano yung kailangan nating qualitative characteristic ng mga reports na nagagawa in the management reporting system. So it should be relevant, which is typically used for decision making. Pag hindi siya kagamit-gamit, then it's not relevant. No? The information should also be summarized on the appropriate level of management. Anong detail yung kailangan nila. Diba? Again, as discussed previously, the higher the level of the management, the less detailed yung kanilang report or the more summarized yung report na kailangan nila. Then, exception orientation. So, it also identifies the risks in that particular report. Accuracy, no? Dapat yung information na presented natin is free from error, bias, or should be also complete. That all of the information needed in the decision should be on that report. It should also be timely. Kasi if the report is not timely, as you all know, then the decision will either be incorrect or incomplete. And finally, no, the report should also be concise enough para maintindihan ng mga users natin. Okay? So, ito lang yun. This is already the old framework. Okay, huwag na natin pansinin yan. Okay? So, in our 2018 version of conceptual framework, di ba, we have qualitative characteristics subdivided into fundamentals, which are, ano nga yung fundamentals? Okay, correct. It should be relevant and faithful representation. Ano naman yung enhancing? Right, correct. That's BCAT. Verifiability, comparability, understandability, and timeliness. Okay, so ito na yung types ng management reports, no? Each of the report has its own objective, pero ano ba yung iba't ibang uri ng report na kailangan ng management? Okay, one would be we have yung program reports. So pag sinabi nating program reports, ang ibig sabihin nito, it's typically the system na meron ng particular format o kaya naman it is already generated as per time frame. Okay, so kumbaga innate na rin sa system itong mga reports na to. Example of which is scheduled reports. So, halimbawa, kailangan ko ng sales report, no? On a weekly basis. So, it's already considered as a program report, no? Meron na tayong particular format at naka-schedule na rin siya in the system. And also, we have on-demand reports wherein it is being triggered by an event. So, example, pag bumaba na yung level ng inventory natin, it would immediately gives the managers an idea na ay, kailangan na natin mag-reorder. Okay? Ng ating merchandise o kaya naman ng raw materials. So those are program reports. On the other hand, if it is innate in the system or even hindi naman siya recurring na nagagamit, then it's known naman as ad hoc report. Pag sinabi natin ad hoc report, it is designed and created as it is being needed. So, minsan, itong ad hoc report na to, it is somehow being a modified talaga report based on a specific need of the user. No? Eventually, based on my experience in the private companies, no, most of the time, managers are really looking for ad hoc reports. Bakit? Mula sa kanilang mga subordinates. Diba, pinapagawa sa akin. Okay, gawa mo nga ako ng fixed asset na report about um, ano yung mga over depreciate na ng with the next 2 years. Okay? Yung mga ganon, that's an ad hoc report. Kasi kung program report naman yan, they could be able already to generate that from the system. Hindi ka nila tatawagin. Okay? Pero yun, yung ad hoc report, ano yan, as needed. So, kapag kailangan na ng ganito, modified report, ayan, papagawa nila yan sa inyo. Pero masaya yung ad hoc report kasi natututo ka in terms of how you really do the report. At the same time, ano yung mga details? Nakikita mo yung details eh, no, compared with program report na, okay, ito na lang yung data, ratio, financial ratio, o ayan, financial ratio. Compared with ad hoc report na lahat ng process dadaanan mo para ma-generate mo yung particular report. Right? So last part of our discussion is all about responsibility accounting. So this is typically, again, a review nung sa strategic cost management niya about decentralized organization. Okay, so in the responsibility accounting per se, okay, it implies that your economic events which affects the business is a responsibility of an individual manager. So, nadidistribute yung responsibility in each of the departments. Okay? So, hindi centralized yung decision natin. Now, this particular responsibility accounting incorporates the fundamental principle of responsibility na discuss natin kanina, wherein the area managers are accountable for the items that they control. Diba? Rather than top-level management, lahat yung nag-decide, they delegated their uh, decision-making schemes sa kanilang mga managers so that they could be able to decide doon sa kanilang nasasakupan. Now, as part of the duties in responsibility accounting is setting financial goals, okay, or in terms of budgeting. So, in the budgeting scheme, so it helps the management to achieve the financial objectives by setting measurable goals for each organizational segment. So, pag na-delegate na yung responsibility in each of the department, they need to set their own budget, which is in line with the organization's budget, so that they could be able to achieve that objective. The budget information flows is downward and becomes increasingly detailed at each lower level. And the performance of the information flow will be upward, no, as a responsibility report. So yung budget pababa, 'di ba? So yung pinaka main budget, master budget from the top level management, nagkakaroon ng budget habang bumababa. Then yung um, performance report natin is pataas. Okay? Out of dun sa nagawa ng per department. So in responsibility accounting, there are what we so called responsibility centers, which includes number one, yung cost center, which is responsible for keeping costs only within the budgetary limits. So one example of a department that is considered as cost center, yung gumagastos lang is, let's say for example, accounting department, diba? Marketing department, HR department, they are considered as cost centers lang because they are revolving on spending their budgetary limits. Samantalang, another responsibility center which is responsible naman for the cost control and revenue generation or income generation is yung profit center. So, nag-i-incur siya ng cost at the same time, siya yung pinagkukunan ng revenue or income ng entity. So, an example of which is si manufacturing, di ba? Gumagastos siya, manufacturing department or production department, gumagastos siya ng raw materials, labor, or even the overheads to prepare the product that they are about to sell. Even the sales department can be considered as a profit center. Okay? And finally, we have investment center, which is generally having the authority of decisions about the costs, the revenue and investments in an asset. So let's say for example, yung portfolio department natin, okay, for the investments in equity o kaya debt, so they are the investment centers. All right? Any question? Okay. So, any question? Wala na? So, next factor that would affect as well the management reporting system are behavioral considerations. So one of it is goal congruence. So pag sinabi natin goal congruence, it is the scheme wherein the goal of each of the departments or responsibility centers should be in line with the goal of the management or the overall goal of the organization. So under goal congruence, the management reporting system and compensation scheme natin help to appropriately assign authority and responsibility. So by doing this, no, if the compensation measures are not carefully designed, the managers may engage in actions not optimal for the organization. Kasi di ba ina-optimize na natin through goal congruence yung management processes or even the organization's resources. Kaya dapat in considering the management reporting system natin, it should always have that goal congruent scheme. Next would be about information overload. So pag sinabi nating information overload, so the manager was being bombarded by more information. So rather than it's typical na na-assimilate niya. Now, anong mangyayari? It can cause the managers to disregard formal informal information, okay, in decision making. So we do not overload managers with the information. So yun yung tatandaan ninyo kapag nag-create na management reporting system. So whatever is needed lang na information of that particular manager, yun lang dapat yung ibigay or makuha niya mula sa management reporting system so that hindi siya magkaroon ng any other information na hindi naman relevant sa decision making niya. Kasi pag nabasa niya yun, ay, ito, o mapapaisip siya lalo, then, hindi niya mabibigay agad yung decision o kaya naman sometimes it would cause na mamali yung decision. Okay? So, eventually, na-design ang management reporting system specific for each of the managers. Kaya nga, di ba kanina, there are various factors at the level of the management, kailangan ganito yung makita natin na information to avoid information overload to those managers. Okay, another behavioral consideration is yung performance measure. So there should be an appropriate performance measure which should stimulate the behavior consistent to the firm's organizations, and the manager should consider all aspects, not just one. When an inappropriate performance measure is used, no, kapag inappropriate yung performance measures natin, okay, what will happen is the report can have the opposite effect in the organization. Okay? So example of some inappropriate measures natin is yung price variances which affects the quality of the items being purchased, di ba? Kasi pag palaki ng palaki yung price variances natin on from the standard price, naku, hahanap tayo ng mag-fit doon sa standard price natin, then mababawasan yung quality depending upon the quality of the product, no? Also, quotas, no, are considered as an appropriate measure because it can affect the quality control, the material usage, and other plant maintenance related items. Okay, so pag nag-quota tayo, halimbawa, quota natin for the day is 5,000, capacity lang natin is 3,000, di ba? So napaka-inappropriate measure yung quota-quota natin. And lastly, another inappropriate measure is yung profit measure, which can affect plant investment. So what we are trying to say in this performance measure is that organizations should put appropriate performance measures that would really, no, check and validate the performances of the organization. I know that in your management accounting, in your strategic cost accounting, you have already discussed various performance measures. Okay? So, ayan. Pero hindi ko sinasabi na itong inappropriate measures na to hindi to ginagamit, they can still be used but less priority sila in terms of performance measurement. Alright? Any questions? So these are the um, management reporting system and financial reporting system information na kailangan natin. Okay? So, any questions so far? Wala naman. Ayan. So, ayun lang. This reporting systems, okay, especially for computerized, okay, is very important right now, okay, because there is already a need for fast and reliable system to be used by management and other users so that they could be able to make their decisions properly. All right. So as we end this discussion, okay, I am showing you right now the slide about interactive question. Akala ninyo walang interactive question na. So ito na yon. So please copy the link in your web browser, okay, and then answer the questions, okay, indicated on the link. Again, para ma-avoid ninyo yung uh, problem sa pagpasok sa link, please make sure that you copy it properly, no? Pati yung tuldok, yung font size natin, okay? So, any questions? So, please read the instruction inside it, okay? Para hindi na ako magalit about you not viewing the uh, video, okay? So, ayan. Pakisagot na lang ha. Good luck sa pagsasagot ninyo. Okay? So, with that, okay, just to have a recap of what we have discussed for today. So, we have discussed the general ledger system, which is eventually affecting the financial reporting and management reporting system. Okay? And on the financial reporting system naman, okay, we have discussed some re-engineering techniques such as the use of XML, HTML, and XBRL. Then in the management reporting system, we have discussed some factor that influences the management reporting systems. Okay? So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask, chat on the chat box natin, group chat natin. Okay? And I will answer them immediately. So for our next discussion, we will about to discuss naman yung tinatawag natin na database management system. Okay, so thank you very much, guys, and have a great day.